Hi guys, welcome to Tangent Tuesdays. So on Tangent Tuesdays, every second Tuesday of the month, I pick a topic and I just sort of riff on it. So this week I want to talk about, because everybody else is talking about it, the recent incident at the 2022 Academy Awards, the Oscars, where comedian and host Chris Rock told a joke about actor Will Smith's wife, and Mr. Smith stepped on stage and slapped him. And the the response to that has been broad and somewhat divided. I am going to approach this from the perspective of, just a regular guy. This is why I couldn't get away with what he did. So, if we take a look at self-defense as a whole, I would sort of briefly define, the objective of self-defense as to stay out of the morgue, out of the hospital, and out of prison in that order. So, let's put me, a non-rich, non-celebrity, in a similar situation. So let's say, out on a date, and we're in a club, and there's a comedian telling jokes on stage, and for the sake of argument, let's say that, I'm familiar with him, he is familiar with me. We may not be friends, but we've seen each other at, social events, we've got a friend in common or something. And he makes a joke about my date, something about their physical appearance or perhaps something else, and something that they can't help. I'm going to be very upset at that. So I want to make it clear, I definitely can understand the desire to put hands on someone who is causing harm to someone you love. I get that. But again, I'm not a celebrity, so let's imagine this scenario playing through. So, I will walk up on stage and I slap this dude. What are some possible, offshoots of the timeline that could happen after I commit that action? Well, the thing that I'm most concerned about is that I've just committed a violent felony in front of a bunch of witnesses. Because again, I'm not a rich celebrity. And no matter how much on a social level people think that that's justified, I don't think I could get away with it on a legal level. That gentleman is well within his rights to have me arrested. So how does that play out for me, the fighting words guy? Well, I got a 9 to 5. I'm probably not making it into work the next day. So that might be a no call, no show. And even though I think that I've done pretty well at my work and I'm generally sort of respected there, I don't know how many of those I can take before they just fire me. If I can get word to them, where is Joe? He's been arrested for committing a violent felony. I don't know if I still keep the job after that. So this is problematic. I don't know if I can make bail. That's another aspect of it. If I don't have a job, then I can't pay rent, can't buy food for my kitties, can't make car payments, can't make insurance payments. I got a little bit in savings, but it wouldn't last. It would be gone like that. And that's everything before the trial. So, the best case scenario is I have a good lawyer who's able to make the case that this behavior is not typical of me and I was enraged and not in my right state of mind or something, and maybe I get off on probation. And that didn't help me because, I got family out of state. Most of my family lives out of state. I got friends out of state. I go to seminars out of state. If I'm on probation, I'm not going out of state. So that's all the horrible things that can happen. Not to mention, like I said, during this time, we're assuming that I'm not able to have any form of income, and, I might have to leave the state because I can't afford to stay here. So, because I got upset and I had an emotional response to words that were coming out of somebody's mouth, I have just ruined my entire life, at least for the short term. There's no telling what's in the future, okay, but, I will have to carry that with me for the rest of my life. And like I said, in the immediate short term, the next few years or so are going to be terrible for me, So that would be a consequence of that action. Another possible consequence, what if the situation escalates? And I'm like, I'm upset at you. He goes, I feel threatened by you. Or his friends jump on the stage, or, he's embarrassed by that and catches me going to the car later. And, there are a lot of scenarios where somehow or another I pay for this. I mean, I didn't do a whole lot of research, but it looks like Will Smith, despite being a multimillionaire celebrity and frankly, one of the most liked human beings in Hollywood, he is suffering some consequences of his actions. No legal consequences, no real civil consequences, but, he is banned from attending Academy events for 10 years, including virtually. He's resigned from the Academy. I don't know how much of a difference that makes in that man's career. I mean, I think financially he's probably going to be okay. I would expect whatever backlash he's facing now will probably go away in a few years. But, in the short term, yeah, his life, his quality of life has dropped from what it was before he did that. And beyond that, if you are in a social situation and you get violent, regardless of if you have these criminal charges pressed against you, regardless of whether or not you face, revenge in the form of violence, now everybody who saw that knows what they can do to piss you off. So from then on, you're going to have to live with that time after time after time. Everybody knows where your buttons are, where your pressure points are, and you haven't made your social situation any easier. What about the date? How well does she know you? Because, again, in this theoretical Joe scenario, what if my date sees me getting physically violent as a reaction to what somebody has said and is now afraid that I will become physically violent when she says something I don't like? I would have a hard time thinking that with most well-adjusted people, that relationship doesn't take a hit. And then, of course, there's the jail stuff. So those are possible consequences of that action. This is why, in self-protection, the general idea is not to put hands on someone who is not a clear and present physical danger. And when you do, you must use the appropriate amount of force to end that immediate danger. You can't take revenge on the guy. You can't knock him down and then stomp his head in. That is illegal, to the best of my understanding of how the law works in most places. So when we, as human beings, consider, what are the possible consequences of that action if it puts me in the morgue, if it puts me in the hospital, if it takes away my freedom, then I probably shouldn't do that. And we can talk about, well, what are the odds that I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that the worst case scenario is not worth me gambling that the best case scenario will happen. And I've had friends and seen other people talk about, well, what could Will Smith have done otherwise? I mean, there's a lot of things. He could have called him out in the moment, like, hey, that's not cool. You know, they could have gotten up and left. They could have said nothing publicly and then, talked to Mr. Rock after the event, or, they could have released a statement publicly, being in that sort of environment, and called him out for, like, hey, he made fun of my condition. And that way, the Mr. Rock looks like a jerk. Unquestionably. Like, you picked on somebody who has a condition. Why did you do that? You didn't need to do that. And he would be nothing but apologies coming forward, right? So, when we think of situations like that, we need to consider the possible repercussions, the possible outcomes. How can I handle this in a way that stacks the deck in my favor when it comes to the future of my life? Because that's ultimately what we're talking about. It's one of the very clear lessons that, my father put into my head. Actions have consequences. You need to think about your consequences. So when we are in social situations, again, using the general guideline, I don't get physical with someone who is not a clear and present physical danger, and I don't use any more force than I need to end the immediate threat. Like, those are the guidelines we need to be thinking about each and every time. After that point, what comes next, right? How can I handle that situation better? We start putting on our problem-solving cap. And, life is not like the movies where, we see people get revenge all the time and it's sweet, and we could live vicariously through those people. But we have to live in this world. And, I, again, would not risk, my possible health, my financial future, the future of my little kitty cats, because I get pissed off at what somebody says and I want to hit them. Again, I totally understand that. I get it. Believe me. Like, I've been in situations where I have reacted in a way that I would not have if someone had been insulting me, but they were insulting a friend of mine. And now I turn into, like, Robert De Niro from The Untouchables. Like, I want him dead. I want his family dead. Like, I turn into that guy, right? But again, past that point, what are the consequences? What will I gain if I put hands on this person? What will I gain if I pursue revenge against this individual? Because honestly, I'm probably going to forget about whatever they did a couple of days later, or at least get over it, right? So I think another aspect, one that doesn't get talked about a whole lot, is what could Mr. Rock have done under these circumstances? And I have seen some armchair quarterbacking from self-defense individuals. I don't really want to take a look at that. I personally am not surprised at all by his reaction. And, he probably didn't expect his peer to, come up and physically assault him, which is what it was. That is the legal definition, right? So, I don't blame him for not having a reaction in the moment, but I have been in situations where, I've been joking around and I've taken a joke too far. It's never resulted in someone getting physical with me, but I've seen that in other cases. Again, this is an instance where sometimes we have to swallow our pride. And I know for me it's very hard to do. Like, okay, I was wrong for that. I'm sorry. I intended to make you laugh. I didn't intend to hurt your feelings. I'm sorry. This is my fault. I did not know how that was going to go. I'm not going to do that again. To the point of maybe, depending on the situation, try to do something to make it up for the person, right? Um, I can't think of any specific examples, but there's, a common scenario that gets talked about in self-defense circles of, you spill a guy's beer and he gets angry with you, offer to buy him another beer. You're out a few bucks and you don't have to pull somebody's teeth out of your fist. So you win. It's a cost-benefit analysis, right? So, even if you don't feel like apologizing, maybe if you have to, internalize this as, okay, I manipulated this guy one way. Let me see if I can manipulate him another way. Let me work on my ability to control someone's actions with my words. How could I play this game to the best of my ability? So that way you don't lose any pride. Now you're not only in control of yourself, you're in control of somebody else. Maybe. But at the very least, it gives you an opportunity to, take a volatile situation and diffuse it. And again, make sure you don't go to the morgue, don't go to the hospital, don't go to prison. And I know, excuse me, I'd say especially in the United States, we do have a lot of prideful people like, I can say anything I want, it's America. Okay. I'm going to go off on a brief tangent, but that's why it's called Tangent Tuesdays. A lot of people will ask, what about freedom of speech? If you are referencing the First Amendment, the First Amendment pertains to what the government can and can't do to your freedom of speech. It does not directly pertain to private, companies, to other individuals. You are not free from consequences. And even then, there are some things that you legally cannot say. There's the old example of, yelling fire in a crowded theater. Okay, now you've endangered people with your words. Making false police reports. Those of us who, have had access to classified information. I couldn't go live and start telling you the secret code names of various military units. I would get arrested, as I should. So there are even restrictions to freedom of speech. Everything in the Constitution's pretty much got an asterisk next to it. So, bear that in mind and be big enough to put your pride aside when it comes to these things. Again, it's not about, I want to be able to say whatever I want. It's about, the consequence of this action is going to be bad for me. And whether I am right or not doesn't matter. I've heard a friend say that, there's a lot of, dead pedestrians that had the right of way. So just because you have the right to do something doesn't mean that it's a good idea to do something. So, just bringing it back, at the end of the day, try to get along with everyone and try to keep yourself out of jail, right? Handle situations with your mind and don't let your rage be what sets you off. Don't give somebody else that sort of control over you. Because if somebody can get you to commit a physical action with their words, that's mind control, right? They just became Dracula and you just became Renfield. Okay, that other one might be a bit of a deep cut. He's not as well known a character, but we are in control of our actions, right? No matter what somebody says, no matter how much it upsets us, we are the ones in control of how we react to that. And I can guarantee if you just sit down, take some deep breaths, maybe give it a day or two, you're going to figure out the best way to handle that situation. And again, on the other side, if we happen to hurt someone, even on the inside, if we happen to hurt them because of something we said, we need to be big enough to set our pride aside, and say, okay, I'm sorry. That wasn't what I meant to do. This is my fault, and I apologize. And what can I do to make you feel better? And ultimately, looking at it from a self-defense perspective, this keeps you from getting attacked. This keeps you from attacking people. And you just get to live your life like you want. And I guess that's all I have for this week, or this month. I only do them once a month. And I'm sure some of you have some thoughts and feelings about that. And, let's keep it civil, but we can discuss it more in the comment section. So share if you'd like. And thank you.